You are now listening to the fastest show on iSports Radio. My name is Daryl Kinsey Jr. Welcoming you, taking a lap for the extra mile for today, June 2nd, 2022. We had an amazing slate of races on Memorial Day. And now we head to St. Louis, where NASCAR will, or the Cup Series rather, will grace Gateway for the first time. And of course, IndyCar also going to be out in Detroit. The NHRA is in New England. And Element hydroplanes are out on the water testing in Kennewick. And to help me talk about all of this and some what ifs, my co-host for the evening, Christopher Lehman. Chris?
How are you doing tonight, Daryl?
I'm doing great. I hope everyone is doing well. Also, remember, if you want to get your comments in on the show, just make sure you post them here in the chat, and we will read them out live on the show. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to start with a review of the Memorial Day trifecta, and the back two races are, I'll say the ending 60% of the Memorial Day triple header, pretty good races. And then the Monaco Grand Prix was an all right race that started with nonsense because it is Monaco and we are not allowed good things.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And as a person who watched, I know that you didn't catch the whole Monaco race, but it was actually really good racing from start to finish. You can say what you want as about the start, but I think to a degree they did make the right call because right as they were starting the formation lap, I mean, it just like unleashed downpours. I mean, you couldn't see the cars on the track. I mean, that a bit of an exaggeration there, but I mean, you know how these cars disappear in the wakes of other cars. Yeah, and this happened right on the formation lap. And you had varying strategies of tires, right? Because now this year you get tire choice. And so you had teams out on full wets, you had inners, and I think actually somebody started on hards. So, yeah, I understand red flagging the race to get everybody in to change tires because it was going to be a very, I mean, remember 2 weeks ago we talked about how teams are asking for extensions or for additions onto the budget cap. You pile half the field into turn one at Monaco lap one. I mean, that's a very expensive pile up. So I think ultimately they did the right thing, waiting and letting it clear up. And I mean, the delay was an hour, which was kind of goofy, but they protected the cost cap. And I think it actually made the racing better.
One of the problems was also they were supposed to start the race a little bit earlier, but they had a power outage that actually affected the start system. So they couldn't even start the race when they wanted. So it ended up moving back towards the original time. And of course, they got caught up in the rain. And it would have been an interesting play to see what would have happened if they could have got the race started on time. But we did have wet Monaco. We did have some strategy. And then at the end, and this is kind of why I don't like the track, Fernando Alonso just backs the field up 30 seconds off the front six. As I'm looking here at the results, Lando Norris finishes 12 seconds behind the leader, and then Alonso 46 seconds back, Lewis Hamilton 50 back, basically traps the remainder of the runners almost a minute behind the leader. And that brings up one of the main issues with this racetrack. And it's really been an issue with Monaco since the early to mid 2000s when they went to the V10 monsters. You just can't pass here. So when you get somebody that's driving more of a bus than a Formula One car, you can't get them out the way. They can't get out your way if they want to, which if they're on the lead lap, they're not entitled to get out of the way. And it just creates a mess at the end.
Yeah, I absolutely, I absolutely wholeheartedly agree with you on that. Um, Alonso's move messed with, well, his lack of moves, I guess you could say. It really cost a lot of teams a chance. It costed his own teammate points
Yep.
because of a penalty. I forget what it was for. Maybe track limits. Track limits were a big issue for everybody.
It was
Um,
either limits or a collision.
which actually, I think he might have had an unsafe release where he almost actually hit Vettel as he was coming in.
Okay.
Um, I think that's what it was actually. Now that my brain's coming back to me, and but yeah, I mean, it was just it. You race your race, and you can't fault someone for racing their race, but he did cost his teammate points, and it really bottlenecked the whole back half of the field, and not like there was going to be a ton of action, but it just takes away from the integrity of the sport. I feel like when you intentionally do that, because
Yeah.
it was obviously 100% intentional what he did. Because then when they told him that his tires were good, he started pulling away, and no one could even come close to matching his times. He pulled right ahead of I forget who it was that was directly behind him.
We had
But
Hamilton back there for most of the second half of the race.
yeah, but he gets told, "Oh, you're good," and then he just takes off like a bat out of HE double hockey sticks.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I didn't particularly care for that, but the I would say among the top four, it was definitely an interesting race, and we'll obviously talk about strategy and how one team can't figure out how to do it, but
Let's talk about that now, since you brought it up. Ferrari had the catbird seat of the Monaco Grand Prix, where they had Charles Leclerc up front on pole. They absolutely blow it with the tire strategy. He ends up fourth. Checo ends up taking the win, and that may have, and during that time, he accidentally told everybody something that we would find out the next day. But the switch to hards for Leclerc after the Red Bulls have already made their stop, and Sainz for that matter, pretty much seals the fate for the number one driver. And Chris, it goes back to what we talked about earlier. This team can just not figure out strategy at all.
yeah, that's really what it comes down to. And at the end of the day, they have nobody to blame but themselves.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to pit strategy, um, they made every wrong decision. That is really the only way that you can summarize what happened. Was every turn they made the wrong decision. The undercut is not what worked this past week. It was the overcut.
Yeah.
And something that I had told you that I actually a theory that I had heard about on the Missed Apex podcast is that, especially after Spain, where Checo was pulled back so that Max could win. Um, and we'll have that talk later. And then this weekend, Checo was faster all weekend, and so there's kind of a theory that after qualifying, Red Bull said, "Okay, you know what? Checo's our best chance of winning this thing. He's our priority this weekend." And I think it worked out great. Ferrari had no idea that they were racing Checo. They thought that, and Daryl, would you ever think in a million years that Max takes the second seat in terms of everything this week at any given race?
I mean, usually
No.
no, but at a track where passing is impossible, you've got to race for planning with the higher placed car in mind. And trying to do an undercut at Monaco, where if you get stuck behind the wrong person, you're screwed. It's just a terrible idea. And there was no way Max, unless he just pulled heroics into Saint Devant, was not going to get in front of Checo this race, unfortunately, just because of how this track works. So they've got to take that into account, and Ferrari just never audibled.
Mm-hmm. And so Ferrari they completely dropped the ball, and then when they realized, which they had to have realized mid-race that they dropped the ball, then they changed their strategy and brought both cars down. Red Bull pitted for inners, and then Ferrari came down for inners, and then Ferrari pitted again for hards, and Red Bull stayed out for a couple more laps. Then they came in for hards, and basically they let Max and Checo beat those inners to death, right? They were putting down really quick times while the Ferraris were trying to get their tires warmed up, and then the overcut worked. Then it doesn't matter who's got the better tires at Monaco. Whoever's got track position is king.
Yep.
And so, I mean, Red Bull, you have to hand it off to, and I don't know her name, but I'm going to pull it up right now. Their strategist. I think it's Emily something, but that woman deserves just the Hannah Schmitz, Chief Strategy Engineer of Red Bull Racing. That woman deserves everything you could ever give her, because she single-handedly has won Red Bull so many races, and all these other teams. It just shows how valuable of a commodity someone like Hannah Schmitz is, because, again, she is out there getting Red Bull win after win after win after win. And if I'm Ferrari, even Mercedes, I'm looking at like, my current strategy team is not doing it. What can we do different? Who do we need to bring in to change that up? And I can tell you, you're not getting Hannah Schmidt.
Because she's going to get a contract renewal coming up soon. But to wrap up, Checo ends up in first in the Monaco Grand Prix. I had the results up, and now for some reason they were gone, so we can get those right back up just so we can tell you who finished where as we go to the race results. Sergio Perez takes the win at Monaco. Carlos Sainz and Max Verstappen fill out the podium. We will see Formula One again later on this month at Baku. That race is going to get absolutely insane. But we move on to the next race of the Memorial Day. Well, what we used to call the Memorial Day GP 500, which is of course, the Indy 500, the 106th running of the race. And Marcus Ericsson, former Formula One driver, picks up the win for Chip Ganassi. And Chris, I don't know if you saw how much of this race that you saw, but Chip Ganassi Racing, Scott Dixon ruled the day, and then a pit road speeding penalty on the last round of stops ends his day.
Is that what happened?
Mm-hmm.
Because I was wondering. I was when I watched, because I ended up watching some highlights afterwards, and just kind of reading about it, so I had an idea of what happened for the show tonight. I had saw that they said that Dixon was doing very well, and looked like, obviously you can't say that someone's a favorite or anything, but throughout the race he was looking very good for the win. And then I looked, and I don't even remember where he finished, but it certainly wasn't where he should have.
No, he ended up running back, really did not get out of the back half of the field, and really the pit stops doomed the strongest two cars in the race. Scott Dixon and Alex Palou were the class of the field all day, and Palou was actually in the middle of coming for his pit stop, and as he's coming on pit road, there's a caution for an incident. There's no way he can dodge the commitment line. He ends up coming down pit road, gets a penalty for a closed pit, and since it was under caution, he has to serve the penalty under green. So he didn't complete the stop under when the pits were closed. He had to get the emergency service, which put him back in the field, then pit with everybody else, and then come down a service drive-through for coming into a closed pit. That effectively ended Ganassi's best two bullets in the gun for their win in the Indy 500.
Yeah, I was wondering what happened because obviously Palou being my nearest the win pick, I saw where he finished and I was like, that is not where he was when I last was looking at the TV.
Mm.
So that explains that.
Yeah, terrible day for them. But on the other side, Marcus Ericsson does end up bringing it home for Chip Ganassi, and he was in a battle with Pato O'Ward and Sage Rosenquist coming there to the end of the race for McLaren's Schmidt-Peterson, and that McLaren, they weren't running up front for a lot of the day, but with all the jumbling from the cautions and of course the pit stop penalties, they were up front there at the end, and Pato gave it a ride, but unfortunately he's added to the long list of drivers that'll be thinking what could have been in the Indy 500.
I'm sorry, I did not hear that, Daryl. I do apologize. I had a work text.
Sorry, I just said Pato yet again is one of the drivers that are wondering what could have been at the Indy 500.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure a lot of people wondered that, but yeah, he definitely he finished second, right?
Yeah.
He had that. He actually had a pretty decent shot there to grab or at least pull up on Ericsson there coming on, I think with just coming around in turn 4 for the lap before the final lap, right? I think that's when he nosed up to him and it looked like a good move to me. He just unfortunately was a little too far back to close the deal and that's racing, but that was actually going to be one of my what ifs was what if he had actually gotten up beside him and I don't want to say made the race interesting, but it's certainly a lot more interesting if two cars are running side by side.
Well, he had an opportunity in the turn number 1. Pato did to try to hang it around the outside. He chose not to do it. Was going to try to get another run off of turn 3, but just could not get close enough. Then Sage Karam got into the wall at the end, brought up the caution. So Ericsson, who's just been on a roll ever since he's got into that Ganassi car, picks up the biggest win of his IndyCar career.
Yeah, and to winning a crown jewel, which there were 3 of them this weekend. That's definitely no small feat, and I'm sure that Ericsson is a very happy man, as is Chip, who we all know likes his winners.
Mm-hmm. And then we get into the Coke 600, and usually this is a race we kind of gloss over, but this week I think we had about everything you could imagine. We had definitely some good racing. We had incredible battle for the end. Somebody got upside down. It was one of those races where the drivers really went all out with the next gen car, and they came out with great returns yet again at 1.5 miles.
Yeah, and I think it's something that it seems like we're weekly at this point talking about how good this new car is on 1.5 miles and
Texas.
Yeah, which I don't think we were ever going to say that this car performed well. It's like the 550 package, right? Even if the race was halfway decent, which Texas is incapable of doing, we would never give them the credit that they don't deserve. Yeah. I'm sorry, I can't even come up with a hypothetical compliment for Texas.
It
but
might come up in our what ifs later, but continue.
What if Texas had a decent race? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what if Texas hadn't reconfigured?
Yeah. Well, I think everyone knows that the three of us on this show are of the Denny Hamlin mindset about Texas.
Yeah. Speaking of Denny Hamlin, he actually ends up taking the win on Sunday after, unfortunately, the 5 of Kyle Larson gets involved in an accident on the initial green-white checker after his absolutely titanic battle with Chase Briscoe. Ends with Briscoe going around in turn number 1 and bringing out the caution. And I don't blame Briscoe for what he did. He absolutely threw it in there to try and win that race. It didn't work out, but that is absolutely the move you want to see at the end of a NASCAR Cup race, as a driver not content with second, trying to get the lead, and it just didn't work out. And it happens.
Yeah, you can't hate a guy for trying. That's for darn sure. And the Coke 600 was more like your local demolition derby if you go to your county fairgrounds on a Saturday night, because the place was a demolition derby. That was an expensive race for the team owners.
Yeah, I know they were talking early in the season about supply problems, getting new parts. I hope that is wrapped up and they were able to make that easier, because there's a lot of teams going to need them. And one of those teams, Chris Buescher, ended up upside down on his lid in what I can only describe as a freak accident. The right front suspension came off, got underneath the car, and just sent him tumbling down the front stretch. However, that car was the least banged up I've ever seen a Cup car after a flip. These composite bodies, they don't break easily.
Yeah, that is certainly the case, and it's something that I know that we as fans all were hoping to see, was the composite bodies. Not necessarily for the farsightedness of being able to take damage in an accident, but more for someone like Kyle Larson to be able to ride the wall, give it a love tap, and then still be able to continue on with his race like nothing happened. So, just I don't want to say an unexpected benefit, because I certainly think that it goes along with the territory, but it's nice, and it has to feel good to be a driver to see Buescher's car and say, okay, if I end up in a situation where I'm flipped, at least the car looks like it's holding up all right, and it doesn't look absolutely terrible for the family watching at home who's not there. I mean that's something that you got to consider is mom and dad sitting at home watching and worrying, hoping you're okay, and so part of that imagery is a car that when it flips over is mostly still intact and together. So definitely was good seeing that. And like I was telling you, actually, I was pretty busy on Sunday, and actually when Buescher, I turned the TV on and Buescher's upside down, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if this is a replay, and I was like, nope, it's live.
So thankfully Buescher is okay, although he is going to miss this week's race. Unfortunately, he has COVID, so Chandler Smith will fill in for him in the Cup Series. But hopefully Buescher gets well soon, and we will see him next time out, as the drivers will be heading out to Sonoma at that point. But we are going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to get into some interesting questions about how motorsports could have been as we continue What If Week here on IE Sports Radio. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this.
Once up, everybody? This is Taryn Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunderous Spikes? Then I have the show for you, Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Attention, all sports fans! If you're someone who wakes up each morning with lists of sporting events to go along with your to-do list for the day, then you just might be a diehard. The world of sports is as vast as the ocean is deep, including the major leagues, the minor leagues, the college, and everything in between. This is me, your boy Larry B of IE Sports Radio, welcoming you to join me every Monday evening at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern on The Defining Moment, a show that focuses on what really matters in the sports world, sports themselves, and nothing outside of them. Once again, tune in for The Defining Moment with me, your boy Larry B, every Monday evening at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern on IE Sports Radio, right here on Spreaker.com. We'll see you there.
The world of semi-pro sports is unlike any other sports organizations. Players pay to play in hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's playing to get filmed to try out for professional teams, big-time colleges, or just playing to stay in shape. No matter what, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been on a quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. Whether you're in Southern California or anywhere in the world, give semi-pro sports a chance. If you love your sport, you may get that second chance you've been waiting for as an athlete. Follow them on Twitter at SoCal Warriors, on Instagram at Southern California_Warriors, and Facebook, Southern California Warriors. So we're back here on the Extra Mile on IE Sports Radio, your feed for all that is sports. Daryl and Christopher, here with you this week. And we're going to get into a very fun topic that all the shows have been doing this week, and that is what if. We've been getting into some of the biggest sports what could have beens all week long, and motorsports is no exception, and we got a lot of these. So I came up with at least a handful, but I'll let Chris go through a couple of his, and then we'll go to mine. And if you guys got any in the chat you would like to share with us, go ahead and throw them in there, and we will talk about what we think would have happened. So, Chris, take it away with number one.
So, what if Spa 1998 never happened?
Whew. And now, if you don't know what happened with Spa 1998, that was a start in the rain, and they went through turn number one, they went down the front stretch, and about the entire field died in the corner, metaphorically speaking. Not literally, metaphorically. Gotta remember the sport we're talking about. Everybody went to backup cars. Damon Hill ends up winning that race. Formula One has been a bit gun-shy about starts and racing in the rain ever since. I don't think they would be as passive when it comes to rain racing, although we do have the Jules Bianchi incident that happens in 2014 that may still cause some issues, but I think a lot of these situations in the rain where we didn't start or are delayed in Formula One, we probably are racing if it wasn't for the memories of Spa 98.
I have to agree with you on that. I kind of thought, so obviously this what if came from a very particular race on Sunday where I was just kind of thinking to myself, like, what if it, and we were on rain delay in Monaco, and I think you can probably figure out how I came up with that.
Yeah.
So, and then I was only able to come up with one more, Daryl.
Mm-hmm.
And I know once I say what year it was and what race it was, I'm going to see not only your heart sink, but you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm talking about the 2016 24 hours.
Oh, no. I cannot make this up. Michael just joined us here in the Zoom as you bring this up.
Oh, no.
He hasn't connected to the audio yet. I knew exactly what you meant.
I'm going to re-ask it.
Okay, Michael, first, welcome. We're doing the What If segment. Chris has one for us.
Welcome, Michael. Now, tell me, I'm going to tell you what year.
I feel like I'm being gaslit right now.
Nope. I'm just going to tell you a year and a race, and if you tell me if you know what my what if question might be. 2016. 24 hours. Of Le Mans.
Fuck off. Oh, fuck off.
We apologize for the language there. If you don't understand, that race is still a sore spot for Michael and I to this day. Oh my God. Which is ironic because that race, the 24 Hours of Le Mans, is coming up next week. But, oh my goodness. I actually started the music on my phone.
I hope you have a wonderful night.
All right, Michael. Yeah, it was nice seeing you. And hopefully we see you again next week.
I think I'll take that one first. I think we look at Toyota's 24 Hours of Le Mans wins a little bit differently because that was a race where they were really in a fight with Porsche and Audi all day long, and they were the better car in that race. And then just an engine failure. Well, the engine starts going bad before that, and then it just dies 50 feet past the start-finish line on the final lap. And it's one of the most depressing visuals in motorsports history to watch the Porsche come up, take the lead, and go screaming off towards turn one, and there's nothing Toyota can do about it.
I know. The garage shots are heartbreaking.
They really are.
So my question is what if Toyota could field a car capable of driving for 24 hours?
Hey, they've gotten better with that.
They've won it like 3 times, man.
Yeah.
Of course, they win it after everybody decides we're going to leave, so they get stuck with the bag. Kind of feel sorry for them in that regard.
So the reason I was late was because, honestly, I didn't know my phone was on silent mode.
Oh.
So when I got the email, I didn't get a notification. I looked at the time because I was playing WRC 8 because it's free now.
Oh, nice.
And I looked at the time. I noticed it was 8, and I was like, wait a second.
Well, we're glad you're joining us. So, obviously, we are putting our what-ifs out there for this week. Michael, you got any?
What if Ferrari had good pit strategy?
We already talked about that at length, Michael. And
I'm glad I missed it.
If they had good. Now the thing is any fan, any even moderately intelligent Formula One fan probably could have called a better race than Ferrari's strategy team this race.
He could have called a better race.
We would have.
Because I'm just like, why would you double stack? Why was that even a thought?
Did you see that, Daryl?
I saw the double stack. I didn't think anything of it until I realized, wait a minute.
Did you hear the radio, though?
I did
sent
hear the
you
radio. He was pissed.
Yeah.
And then I think he either started yelling in either French or Italian.
Yeah. Yeah, they told him, for everybody listening at home, they told Leclerc to box. So then he's coming down, and when he's 35 feet from the pit stall, they tell him to stay out.
Yep, and he's already in.
Meanwhile, he's already stopped waiting for Sainz to pull out of the tire area there, the pit, and then he like any sane person would do, loses it.
Yep.
I would have lost it.
We all
Me too.
lost it. So I guess I will take my turn at the what ifs, and I guess I'll throw the heavy one at us first. What if the safer barrier had never been invented?
A lot more people would die.
I mean, I can name a couple off the top of my head, drivers that wouldn't be here anymore. Not Jeremy Clements. David Rudiman at Texas. I don't think he comes back from that.
I think Steve Park, the second crash, not the first crash.
Yeah, the second Steve Park.
What's another one?
There's just been
Romain Grosjean, definitely.
Yep. What in IndyCar? Because in Formula One,
No, I mean, Formula One.
Well, he hit Armco there, so that didn't even matter. But there's been so many drivers over the years where we've looked at a crash and say, yeah, the safer barrier just saved his life. And I think we probably would have lost a couple more drivers after Dale Earnhardt when that happened without the safer barrier, which is probably one of the most instrumental safety devices we have in racing. And I'm surprised, not just, NASCAR tracks, but I'm really surprised, that F1 grade 1 tracks or FIA grade 1 tracks don't have safer barrier on every surface that a car could possibly reach at this point.
Yeah. And I don't know. Sometimes I think it's the case of they don't think Formula One drivers crash a lot, but when they do, as what happened this weekend with Mick Schumacher, they do crash, and sometimes it's pretty spectacular. So
yeah, it is.
I think they need to really consider that off chance, that happening. Here's another what if. What if Lewis Hamilton could have overtaken Alonso?
Oh God, we talked about that at length too. That was.
I'm back, and I missed something good apparently.
We were talking about the Alonso debacle from this race.
Michael, I thought that was a garbage call on Alonso's part because he ended up costing his teammate points.
Yep.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those things where Alonso, I don't know if he actually is like this, but I think it's one of those deals where Alonso has a history of not really caring about his number 2 driver like that.
He didn't care about anybody in the field the way he was driving.
Yeah. So he's just like, I'm a park it here and good luck passing.
So I saw a thing, and did you see that George Russell is still just knocking out the top 5s? I think every race so far this season he's been top 5.
He's been absolutely Mr. Consistent with the top 5s. Obviously, this whatever is ailing the Mercedes car, it is not ailing him like it's ailing Lewis Hamilton. He's been able to keep in the top 5, which is good to see because Russell's going to have to be the number 1 driver over there because we know Lewis, he doesn't have a lot of time left in Formula One to begin with. So
yeah,
and I also heard through the rumor grapevine, and it's probably not going to be a secret to you guys, but one of Formula One's most eccentric and most loved drivers might be out of a seat next year.
You talking
Maybe,
about Ricardo?
maybe even as early as the summer break. Yes.
Yeah,
Oof.
it's not been good.
There's some rumblings about a summer break switch.
That would be unfortunate. But that Ricardo to McLaren move just has not worked.
No, it really hasn't.
I just wonder what happened from his Red Bull days to actually Verstappen happened.
I think equipment. I don't think that when look at Sainz and Leclerc, for instance, right? As a number 2 driver, the team just doesn't care what you have to say. They're not worried about setting the car up the way you like it.
Yeah.
They're invested on driver number 1, and Ricardo is driver number 2 at McLaren. And so he's not as vocal saying, whereas Sainz is saying, like, this car is not set up for me. I don't like this car. That's why I struggle with it. Ricardo's not really the type of guy that's going to go show his frustration to the media and say, like, this car is garbage. I can't drive it. He's just going to play the politician and either underrepresent how much he's struggling, or he won't tell you why. And I think that's a big difference, in why he's doing so bad, is because we can't rationalize why he's doing so bad. We just see the bad results, but we don't get the rationale as to why.
Yeah.
Yep.
Part of me thinks he should have stayed at Renault, because he was like the clear number 1 there. At least I hope he was. And maybe he would have been able to make something happen there, but I don't know. He chose to jump ship.
Do you guys think that if Max Verstappen doesn't come in, do you think Daniel Ricciardo wins the championship?
Oh, that's a really good one.
That's a good one. I think he does.
I think he gets one eventually, as well as these Red Bulls have been behaving. I think he would have got one.
Because I think he really left because of them not being able to finish races.
Yeah, they were having issues with reliability and the car wasn't fast, but if he stuck it out until now, he probably wins a championship.
He and Verstappen would be going at it for championships.
Yep.
I think Checo winning Monaco puts him into the potential champion mix now. I mean, he's gained some.
Yeah.
I don't remember what the standings are, but I don't think he's too far off.
Checo has 110 to Max's 125 and Charles 116, so he is closing in.
Yeah.
It's only 15 points away, so another slip up.
I mean, you're talking a DNF for, one DNF for Max or Leclerc, and obviously Checo can grab the lead.
Oh, excuse me. So I got another what if. I think this one is a bit more sport changing. What if the incidents on the final lap of the 2001 Daytona 500 didn't happen?
BEI would still be here.
NASCAR wouldn't have died.
I was looking for that answer.
Millions of people would still watch the race every week.
Yeah, probably. Even though millions are still watching every week and their ratings are up. But anyway, seriously though,
I think inevitably. Mm-hmm. So we can talk about the Hans device. Yeah. Right. I think inevitably somebody else would have lost their life forcing that change.
Well, Blaise Alexander lost his life, later that year, and that's when the Hans really came in.
Yeah. But I think the safety advancements that we made still would have happened. I think we would have just been delayed a little bit. Yeah. But kind of like Spa 1998. I think eventually Formula One would have gotten there, but it would not have taken place so quickly.
Mm-hmm. I think the good part would be Junior never leaves DEI. So we never get the Hendrick foursome over there. That super team that ended up getting put together. That doesn't happen. Casey Kane might actually get over there a little bit earlier, the way things went, since there will be that open seat after Kyle Busch leaves at the end of the year to go to Joe Gibbs Racing.
And then Kyle Busch dominates in a Hendrick car for his whole career.
Possibly.
And then realistically, Joe Gibbs probably doesn't have nearly the success that he has.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Continued is what I should say.
I don't know if Kyle stays, because they were already having a falling out over his attitude. That's when Junior jumped in the car to finish the race, and that was kind of the catalyst to start that whole Junior to Hendrick deal as it was. Yeah. But I think if DEI was still on the top of things, because if Senior was still there at that point, he would have retired to run the day-to-day of the team. I don't think that driver swap happens. So maybe either they smooth it out or somebody else ends up getting that 5 at the end of the year when Kyle Busch leaves. I still think the Kyle Busch leaving still happens.
And I mean, another thing is, what Kevin Harvick makes it to Cup eventually, but does he make it to Cup, quite in the way that he did?
He makes it to Cup he gets to RCR eventually in Cup. I know he was supposed to run a partial schedule in the 30 for the American Online car before Jeff Green ended up running it. So I think that still happens, where he eventually comes up and he basically takes over RCR. I think he still gets the 3, but it's not after, the tragic death of Dale Earnhardt. It's after Senior decides, I'm going to go, I've done my racing. Now I'm going to go run the day-to-day of my team and watch my son and Michael Waltrip and Steve Park go out there and do things.
Yep. Maybe we don't get the Michael Waltrip Racing incident either.
Yep. And that's actually a good one. What if Spingate didn't happen? And I'll go first with that one. If Spingate doesn't happen, I don't think we get 16. I don't think we get the playoffs the way they are. The only reason they went to 16 was because of Spingate and the nonsense that created. Obviously, Michael Waltrip Racing is probably still here. Truex probably doesn't win a championship. At least, because there was that whole thing where he ends up going to Furniture Row and all the misfits get together and he ends up winning the championship in dominating fashion during the opening years of the modern day playoffs. I think he's still a race winner, but I don't think he ever gets that extra boost to becoming like a championship contender if he doesn't have that journey where his career was pretty much over when he got to Furniture Row, and it took them a while to turn that around.
Yeah. No, I more or less agree with everything you just said, starting right up from the playoff format. I mean, if it hit the nail on the head, really.
Yep. I think another thing is it keeps Furniture Row here, because then they don't get the champions tax from JGR.
Yeah.
But then they don't have the open seats to possibly have 2311 start with Denny Hamlin. Wow, that change was more of a NASCAR patient zero moment than I really thought.
I mean, patient zero moment starts right back with 2001.
Yep.
Because Michael Waltrip Racing probably doesn't get started.
Yep.
So Boyer doesn't spin. So, and then everything you just said after that.
Yep.
I mean, everything happens for a reason. Everything's built upon each other. Everything's so interconnected. It's just kind of crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, but it is fun to have these conversations every now and then and just think about how different our favorite sports could have been if something was just a little bit different.
Yeah.
And of course, it is time for something a little bit different. It's time for Nearest the Win. We've got 2 races this week. IndyCar is out in Detroit. Last race at Belle Isle before they move downtown. And NASCAR for the first time is going to be at St. Louis and Gateway for this weekend's races. So I'm going to take Kyle Larson, and I'm going to take for IndyCar. Now I think this is, are they doing 2 or 1 here? I think they're doing the 2 at Detroit. I got to check that again. They're doing just the 1 on Sunday. You know what? I am going to take Graham Rahal to win this race. He's going to throw one out from left field. He has actually done well here in the past, so take Graham Rahal to win. Michael, Chris, who you got?
Thank God there's no Formula One this weekend. I'm going to take for Gateway. I don't really know, honestly. Shot in the dark, Christopher Bell. Indy, Scott Dixon.
Two.
Yeah, see, this is picking a new track is fun. But it's very difficult. I'm gonna take KFB.
Okay.
And let's take VK.
I was thinking
Alrighty.
him.
Remember, if you want to play Nearest the Win, make sure you get your tweets out before the start of the races on Sunday. Hashtag Nearest the Win with your picks on who's going to win this weekend. And folks, for the last 7 years, actually, let me get this up so I read this correctly. So get ready to say goodbye this evening. For the last 8 years now, iSports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. All the while, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans. With your help, we are ready to take the next step. When you go to our website, iSportsRadio.com, you'll see our Patreon link with 5 different tiers starting at just $5 a month. That $5 donation gets you shout-outs to all 32 of our shows, and higher tiers include iSports Radio merchandise, access to the podcasting university, and a chance to be featured on a segment of our flagship show, The Defining Moment. Thank you all very much for continuing to make iSports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports. I want to thank Bay Area Raised, MLO's Great, Key to the Gate, and one anonymous Patreon member for supporting us this month and our fan of the month. Of course, Justin Ekstrom, a Viking fan from Minnesota, at the Sports Crib 21. And of course, if you want to talk to us on Twitter, I'm at DK Jr. 12, Michael's at Michael_War25, and Chris is at Fiji Sims. And make sure you keep it locked to all our social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And make sure you check out any episode of any iSports Radio show you may have missed anywhere where you can get your podcasts, including the YouTube repository, which has a link to every episode from the very start of our network. So that's, excuse me. So that said, it's time to get out of here. The Bayou Bulletin coming up right after us. So keep it locked right here for about, 4 or 5 minutes to get that started with Arthur Parsons, who joined us again in the chat this evening. But that will be the checkered flag for this edition of The Extra Mile. We'll see you At the next green flag for Christopher and Michael, I'm Daryl. Thank you so much for listening. Catch you next week.